Hi, folks. It's CJ Miller. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana. This is Shreveport out my window. Across from downtown, across the Red River, is beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. Now, I'm going to be talking about this movie. This movie came out in 1981. It's actually been one of my favorite movies to come out of the early 80s slasher genre. Uh, and the irony is, it's not a teen slasher. Um, you know, um, okay, so we had, you know, Halloween, which I really want to say that the first movie that really kind of really peeks its way into the teen slasher genre probably I want to say is Black Christmas. And of course, it was not a very gory movie, but it was that, the killer hiding upstairs in the attic of the house, making phone calls and things like that. And it was eerie and spooky. Then we have Halloween that's like just stalkerish, super, you know, stalky for. And then so Friday the 13th, a couple of years later, 1979 actually, they were to, recreate the fanfare, um, Sean Cunningham and I think that's his name, and Victor Miller were the writers and producers and everything. And actually, they kind of like took the name and they put it out in in trade publications and things like that, just to see if people would be interested in seeing it. And they didn't even have a script, but they got interested just from the name. And yeah, so people, they had to really rush it through a script together and everything like that. But then after that, it just opened the door for like slasher movies, like and the sequels that would come out, endless sequels. But there was a little bit of a lag after like during some time in like uh, 1979, 80, 81, towards the end of it, uh, that there was a little bit of fatigue, and this is what people were going to see. They were going to see slasher movies. Let me see if I can't get this back here. Yeah, that's great. Oh no, give me just a second. Okay, so yeah, I have a Voodoo app, and I bought this. Uh, but I saw it when I was like, like I maybe when it played on HBO, uh, when I was like a kid, and these things would come to cable pretty quickly. So if it was put out in 1981, as it says, then I saw it, I want to say towards the end of 82, going into 83, you know. But check out this cast. Okay, so we have Lauren Bacall, you know, and she actually gets a nod for her portrayal in this movie uh, in a supporting sort of cameo-ish kind of thing. Not really a cameo because she actually had some lines, more than just a walk-on in Stephen King's um, Misery, with Kathy Bates and everything. So, but Michael Biehn, we know from the Terminator, he was, Kyle Reese, James Garner, Maureen Stapleton, you know, and yeah, there's various actors and things like that. But the four leads, the four principals in this movie, I mean, are big name players in Hollywood, or they were, for some time even after this, Of course, with James, and my hair is all messed up. So with James Garner being like you know, uh, in westerns, and then he came back and he did some genre films. He did that movie Tank. That's where I know him from. Tank with C. Thomas Howell and everything. But yeah, what's endearing about this movie? Let me tell you about it. So, and it's based on a book that I read. Sometime later, I read the book after I saw the movie, obviously, and the book is the Fan, and it was noted for it was basically an epistle book. It was like told entirely through uh, mock letters sent in the mail, uh, mostly from Douglas Breen, his character Douglas Breen, to the actress Sally Ross, being who in this movie is played by Laura Bacall. And so there's a lot of voiceover in this, and it's stylized, and it's a lot of it's filmed uh, at a distance. It's kind of like the reading the novel was a lot like kind of being a sneak reading people's mail. And this movie is kind of like when you view it, you're almost like it's this voyeuristic sneak of like looking into people's lives and everything. And there is some witty, sharp humor. It's really kind of like offsets the and really brings forth and showcases the suspense, because this is more of a noir, uh, but it's so she's a okay. So just to tell the story real quick before I get too into it, um, Sally Ross is you know a, an an older actress, obviously. Because she's 50. That was the age they finally settled on, and so literally, I'm older than the character. That's the lead in this movie. But so, yeah, she was 50, and she's not really making movies now. She's doing Broadway plays, you know. Uh, and then her ex-husband, James Garner, and he has a new fiance, but they're still friends, and it's apparent that they're still in love. But then we have Michael Biehn playing Douglas Breen, who has been obsessed with this character, and it starts innocently enough with the writing. It's a little weird, the letter that he writes, uh, and of course, typically asking for a picture here and there, and then he kind of gets upset because the picture that he gets is one that he's already gotten, so he writes back, and then of course the secretary, who was played by Maureen Stapleton, who was a great actress in her day. Um, she is like the secretary to Ms. Ross, and she writes him back, and she lets him know that the last thing she wants to do ever is upset a member of the fan club or one of the fans or anything like that. And of course, he gets really upset. Michael Brandon writes back, how dare your secretary think that I'm a member of your fan club? I am so much more than that, and so they kind of like this is kind of like an obsession thing. Uh, well, so he decides he needs to get uh, Miss Belle Goldman, the secretary, out of the way. So this is where it kind of takes a turn, and it stops being obsessive through the mail, and it becomes a little bit of a slasher. Now, what's unique about this is that he'll attack. Uh, kind of gives her he's not intending to kill her, so he doesn't kill her. He just maims her to get her out of the way and get her to the hospital and maybe scare her off and everything. Of course, uh, 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 Emily Stoltz is, I believe she's the police officer, uh, one of the police officers, and so is Raphael. I think that's the name that I guess it's Andre something, I don't know, but we get to know him by the name of Raphael. They're both investigators that kind of like come around and guard the home when it's apparent that the actress is being stalked. And then, of course, there's a little side plot where Douglas Breen works in a record store. Back in the day, kids, you didn't stream music. You actually went to a record store. Like Sam Goody was one uh, that I remember, and you would buy records, music. We had a couple of them actually in the mall that I grew up in. Uh, And I say that because we literally hung out in a mall. And let's see, this hat. I don't know if it's right for this hairdo right now. Um, it's. I'm fond of these movies, these 80s slasher movies, because it kind of reminds me of a pleasant memory in my youth where we went to see a double feature of Friday the 13th, Part One and Part Two, at a drive-in movie in West. West Lake Charles, wait, Lake Charles or West Lake, whatever. I was like really young, but my older brother was there, and so was my sister, uh, and then my older brother, who's my half brother. Of course, I don't think of my siblings in terms like that. If you're my brother, you're my brother. But I've talked about this before. It was a really good memory. Uh, so I have a love of this particular genre for that, not because I'm a psycho or anything like that. But if you were to look at my uh, digital library, it would be like, oh my God, this dude's a maniac. Because it's like mostly 80, 80s slasher films or movies that kind of echo that sentiment. But anyway, it's a really good movie. This was unique because at the end of the 1981, there was a big run on that. And then there was a little bit of a fatigue where they started to make, okay, some other movies. Um, we'd had okay, there were some adult, uh, aimed more at adult horror. There was like a higher elevated horror, we want to say maybe, starting with The Omen in the 70s, that was kind of like that was right around Rosemary's Baby and then came The Exorcist and then The Omen, or I think maybe The Omen maybe even come first. I don't know, but of course, The Exorcist took the gross out factor and the shock, and went with it. Uh, but it had to, for the story, it had to be that. And of course, every thing that's come after that has been like every possession movie has been like a direct, you know, uh, point for point retelling of that. Anyway, um, yeah. So it's the really the thing is that the acting in this movie is way better than you get in most of these movies, and um, there are some kills. Like I said, uh, Maureen Stapleton. I mean, her character uh, gets attacked, but the intent is not to kill, and so she doesn't die. I think. Also, this is oh yeah. So I don't yeah. Kurt Johnson plays a character, David Branham. Now he gets attacked, and uh, of course he does not die. Uh, but yeah, he was a co actor in this play that she's working on. Uh, a lot of people. Uh, Kalani Lee has done like a lot of work in TV, uh, past and post this movie. So she was really good. I believe I think it's the same actress who was in what was the name of that show? I think the show was Amen. I think with Sherman Helmsley, who was George Jefferson, and then in this sitcom, he was a minister, and she was his daughter or something. Uh, I think that's her. Anyway, um, but these four leads, one, two, three, four. I mean, they're brilliant, brilliant. The talent in it. It's another movie that came out around this time. We had a movie called Visiting Hours, which uh, was The Omen too. She was in the lead in that one. I think her name was Lee Grant, and of course she played the adopted mother of Damien Thorne in that movie. But she was in another movie, a slasher, uh, that came out around the time this came out, called Visiting Hours, in which she was in a hospital. She was a TV reporter, and she'd done like a scathing report on someone and who had attacked wife or something like that. And there was a big thing going on, and Michael Ironside uh, played the person that felt that she slighted him, so he went after her in the hospital. And of course, Linda Pearl co-starred in that one also. So, I mean, I have a good, I'm pretty studied up in this particular era. Another movie that came out that you should check out is Ghost Story. Now, Ghost Story is also based on a novel. It was a collaborative work by Stephen King. No, it wasn't. That was The Talisman. Stephen King had nothing to do with Ghost Story, but Peter Straub, he actually did co-write The Talisman with Stephen King, but he actually solely is responsible for writing Ghost Story, which is a traditional ghost story with a 1982-ish slasher spin on it. And you have, you know, four um, men who, from they were classic Hollywood actors. Uh, and I mean, Fred Astaire, I think, was in the movie. I know, you know what I mean? But they're not dancing though, and they were like fraternity brothers back in the day, and they had kind of they all sort of had like a, a whirlwind thing with a beautiful woman, and they were just having fun, and it was a big fling, and she, nobody was too serious about anything like that. But one night they're all partying and whatever, and it was and like a free thing, but she drank too much and she died. And so this is, it had to have been back in the 40s or 50s or something when they were that young to be in a fraternity or whatever, or college preps or whatever. And anyway, yeah, so they have to cover up her death so that their lives, their futures, will not be ruined. And of course, here we are decades later in this movie, and they're all like very old men thinking that, hey, they're getting away with it, and all of a sudden they start seeing uh, apparitions, and it's from there. It's a pretty interesting story. You don't get away. Everybody gets their comeuppance. Um, it's I will tell you that story, Ghost Story. If I were to watch the Ghost Story and then I watch the movie What Lies Beneath with Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford, um, it's the same movie, except the scenario changes a little bit. Instead of a fraternity, it's an unfaithful husband, and not nearly as much time passes. But it's the same type of ghost story. Uh, so they could be interchangeable. Of course, What Lies Beneath has better effects. It's a little more modernized and a little trippier. Um, but back to this movie, let's see some reviews. Um, what started out as a taut thriller has somehow evolved into an unintentional burlesque with killer and victim functioning as a second-rate comedy team. They did do there was a little bit of comedy, but that's in the humor of things. In great drama, what happens is when there's a heavy weight, uh, when there's a heavy atmosphere, you got to cut the tension with some levity, and at some point it's even like Lauren Bacall's character, Sally Ross, even when talking to her ex-husband, will say, "Hey, say something quick, say something funny, quick, quick, cut the tension," and so it's like, yeah, that's a part of it. Michael Biehn plays one of the creepiest unmasked killers, and I gotta say, when I was like a little kid, I was a gay boy, and had a crush on Michael Biehn, and largely it's because of this movie and also another one that he did called Coach with Kathy Lee Crosby, who I remember seeing on a variety show, That's Incredible, that showcased like tabloid stories that were inspirational. And stuff like that. Uh, it was a, if you remember that, she played the first televised Wonder Woman. She wasn't the first Wonder Woman to make a pilot. There was an early one called Who's Afraid of Diana Prince, but it did not get aired, and it was just a test sampling. But Kathy Lee Crosby did the first Wonder Woman movie, and it did well. And then the following year, they did a TV movie with Linda Carter that became, and it was called The New Original Wonder Woman. And that, the new original Wonder Woman. I always wondered about that title. That's because there had been previously the Kathy Lee Crosby movie. Uh, but anyway, so yeah, and then that became like the um, that became the pilot for the series sometime later. So here we go. Enjoyable, campy trash. It's, looking back with time, it seems campy. Uh, but I think it was pretty dramatic for its time. It was all it was there was some soapy romance between the James Garner and Laura McCall's character. And she reads her line. She's very, very method acting when she acts. She's got that deep husky voice. Almost, I could almost capture the sentiment. It's very Brahmin, very proper. Almost a New England proper. Here we go. And almost very smoky. She's smoking cigarettes left and right through this fucking movie. It's um, chilling but unrealistic stalker film. I don't know that it's that unrealistic. New York is a big place, and it takes place in New York. I don't know. I don't know that it is. I mean, most people, are stalked and killed by people in close proximity. I mean, Friday the 13th, the actress Adrienne King, she quit appearing and only did voiceover work for many decades after she had a stalker. Then, of course, there was the Pam Dauber had a she was Mindy from Mork and Mindy, and she had another sitcom, My Sister Sam, and I forget the first name, but Schaefer, I want to say, is her last name. Anyway, I forget it, but no, she was, who played the younger sister. She was killed by a stalker, you know, uh, and this was back when you could look up people's information basically just by a cross reference of a catalog, at the DMV or something like that, even in Hollywood. And it was because of the My Sister Sam, that killing, that they made it more difficult to do that. So let's see. As Douglas closes in on his Broadway prey, the fan ramps up the horror movie tropes just as it ramps up the Broadway schmaltz of the finished show. Yes, the Broadway number is very cheesy. It's almost cabaret and everything like that. But that is what was going on in Broadway at the time. A chorus line was the big musical at that time, and the only way really to see it was on Broadway. I've never seen it, but it wasn't making the tours like you could get, like you could do it now. Like every once in a while, there's a touring or something, a revival of it, and it'll come out and it'll tour or something like that. But it was the longest running up until it closed, and then a couple of years later, Cats overtook it. But yeah, the a chorus line, and it was one of these things where they were doing the thing about a chorus line is that the guy's doing auditions for a play, and he's having the dancers come on, and then as they doing their little audition, he says, like, tell me something about yourself. And so they tell the movie is about their dialogue or whatever. That's what a chorus line is about. They're casting the chorus line, and as they're revealing their individual personalities to the director. It's kind of like the very beginning, the opening segment of the 1980s movie Fame. Okay, so those looking for a tight thriller will be bored. No, for the time that it came out, um, it really was tense. There are moments because there's this whole thing. It captures the spirit of the novel. I will say that it really captures the spirit of the novel, which is a little bit uh, winkish and a little bit fun. Uh, and of course, I'm going to go ahead and spoil the ending for you because I've talked right now, so I'll let you know it's going to be a spoiler. Um, Laura McCall is a final girl, like the sole survivor final girl, uh, but she does not survive in the novel. In the novel, she is killed on opening night. So they don't. Yeah, this is not your cut them up, slash them. But there's a body count in here that's higher than I believe Halloween, and maybe even higher than Friday the 13th. Okay, so regardless of which way you want to look at it, though, this film is queer. A young man stalks an older star who is past her prime, throwing musical replete with glittering sequin. I don't know if I should read the rest of it, but it is kind of that. He kind of like, hey, but he's in love with her. He doesn't want to be her. But there is a scene, the young gay boy, and I got sidetracked, and I loved him, Michael Bean, that he needs to more spoilers now. He needs to convince the uh, everybody that he is dead. So he goes to a bar, picks up a guy, uh, takes him back, and just as the guy's it apparently is um, uh, providing a service, uh, he is killed and then burned alive, and then a note is left with as evidence of, hey, this is me and I'm killing myself, with apologies for everything that I put the starlet through. And so everybody thinks he's dead, and that's why it's safe for everybody to come out of hiding, and then everything starts back up. But yeah, it's there's there's aside from that scene, which is not subtext, it's really there, gay baiting, and honestly, true to form, because if you killed a gay person in 1980, nobody gave a damn. Um, you know, um, it stayed. Yeah, I mean, it was, uh, but anyway, but yeah, there could be some subtext read into it. He's a younger man uh, stalking an idol, and we gay people, we love our golden era, uh, and Lauren Bacall is a an icon. She got that deep husky voice, and like I said, I tried to imitate it. And uh, she is imitated in another movie uh, called, it's a slasher movie, and it's not so much an imitation, but the voice is there. The voice is the same, and it is a movie called Psycho Beach Party. And the investigating officer who's investigating, it's kind of like the killer there, Chicklet. She is a cross between Gidget and Sybil, two Sally Field characters, molded into one. So she's a Gidget with a split personality or multiple personalities, and she's suspected of being a murderer. And the investigating officer is played by a man in drag who plays the part as if he were Lauren Bacall. He delivers lines like, "I want to know everything you saw, everything you heard," kind of, like that. Keep this up. Maybe I'll get good at voicing. I don't know. I don't do drag. I'm not a drag queen. I'm not that kind of gay. But these reviews are pretty. The reviews modern are not. So I'm pretty sure it's going to get from the gay community news. The fan is junk. Yeah, because it's not a representation of gay culture or anything like that. There is a kill that takes place in a YMCA, but he's a Broadway dancer. Um, so so in retrospect, it's gonna um, it's gonna leave some people cold. But at the time that it came out, it was pretty good. It was different. Ghost Story was different, uh, and it's kind of like you need a broader perspective. You don't want just if you go here looking to see a bunch of teens getting slashed up, you're not going to get it. These are older people, uh, and these are older people probably making movies so that they can get, a paycheck. These are, But then Lauren Bacall, she became a genre favorite because she made some noir movies, and this is just a modern noir movie. Uh, the blood is minimal. You don't see the slices or the cuts happening. I think at one time you see a cut happening across someone's blouse, but it's over the blouse and it doesn't cut through, so you're not seeing skin. It's just it's it's very stylized in the way that the original Halloween was. Um, Good work by Bacall and especially by Bean. So yeah, so there's some good reviews and there's some bad reviews. Basically, if you come here looking to see a movie uh, that you go here looking to see a movie, I'm going to play the trailer in the background while I finish this up, and then I promise I'll be finished with the video by the time this is. There we go. If you go here looking to see a movie that is the body horror or the torture stuff that we get today, it's terrible. So here we have Lauren Bacall and Maureen Stapleton, and she's like, "Hey, by the way, you got a creepy fan, out here," and she's like, "Whatever, And so she's like reading it, and she's like, "Hey, listen to this." But then Lauren Bacall, she's kind of like a self-obsessed, star at this point. She's got stuff going on, and yeah, she's a little bit spoiled. Um, this is Michael Biehn. Look how young he is in this movie. And of course, if you see him in another movie around this time, Coach, which was Kathy Lee Crosby playing a coach, that's very inappropriate, but that is a teacher. I guess we're not going to see the full trailer then. I'll try and see if I can't get it again. Yeah, it cut off for some reason. Oh, no. Okay, there's just a voice over there. Probably Mr. Movie doing a voice of it. I don't know. Somewhere out there's a fan. Or, Lauren Bacall has a fan or something. Whatever. Let's do it. Let's listen to it. Hold on. It was obviously a TV spot versus a trailer. Let's see. Here we go. If I were like a decent person, I'd learn how to.
What's that? Your new pictures. Burn them. All right, what's the good news?
You've got a luncheon date.
No, I haven't.
As of 10:30 this morning.
We're going.
He says he's the ex-Mr. Sally Rose.
Jake? He's making a movie. No wonder he hasn't answered my call.
And so there's not much of a trailer.
I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I think your secretary needs a talking to.
She enclosed a very snide letter with the photograph, actually referring to me as a member of your fan club. I'm not one of those cheap, anonymous little stargazers, as she so smugly insinuated. And frankly, I think such rudeness should not go unpunished.
But I assure you I remain yours.
This trailer does not really do this justice, but you get a good sense of what it is. That's the setup. And then, of course, he starts, like, okay, well, the secretary's in the way, and then this co-star that you're dating is okay. And of course, it really doesn't say so in the movie, but at one point, she does take a run and go on a hiatus where she can't be found. And her motivation for that is because she is in fear of the life of her ex-husband, played here by James Garner, who's not seen in the trailer. But that's sort of implied, though, because he comes to it's a great. So this movie, if you're an older person, I'm an older person. If you were an older person at the time, you would get that sense of romance, because this is kind of a romance. It's got a little wit to it. It's got not so much of a mystery as in we have to figure out who the killer is. A lot of these movies, uh, it's a mystery, and you have to go along with it, Agatha Christie style, as the detective and try to figure out who the killer is, or what the twist is. This really isn't. This really doesn't have a twist. As a matter of fact, the novel had a twist. The novel had a twist that they thought that Douglas Breen uh, had killed himself, and in the very last correspondence, um, you know, he's not dead, and he's describing how he's gonna, you know, kill her or whatever. So it's it borders a little bit. It could have been, and if this had been done today, it could be done as an art film, actually, because of the voiceover and the cinematography of it. And some of the scenes are great. You have that from here to eternity, walking along the beach, trope. It's a lot of romance trope, and then a lot of horror, slasher trope. But it's a straight razor is the murder weapon that he favors, and so that was made use of in another movie. Brian De Palma did a movie called Dressed to Kill, and Angie Dickinson is killed with the straight razor. And that movie is another homage to Psycho. Okay, so I've talked nearly, over 35 minutes. I have to squint because I have glasses that I need to pick up. These are not doing it for me. It's almost 40 minutes. I hope that you like my review. I really hope that you will look at this movie and you'll see it as the classic lightweight slasher that it is intended to be. It is well written. The book was well written if you read it. There was another movie called The Fan, and that is, I believe, Robert De Niro stalking a baseball fan, and it's along that line. It's basically a fan stalking his hero is a baseball star instead of a movie star, and so it's an older man stalking a younger athlete. So that's a twist on that one. I haven't watched it yet, and it's been out for quite some time. And of course, everybody has seen Misery. That is a very different scenario because Kathy Bates is the fan, but she actually, it's about her holding her obsession hostage, throughout most of the movie. As a matter of fact, by the time it starts, like, she's pulling him from a car in the snowstorm, and Kathy Bates is hauling this man on her big back or whatever, and I guess she's able to get him inside. Of course, yeah. I wish there was more of a trailer to this. But yeah, it's because it is there. There are some parts of it. Now it starts out. That's a setup, but there are definitely some parts to this movie that are suspenseful. And it may be that it got made and it went into a release. And see, movies back then, they didn't always get wide releases. Sometimes they did. We didn't really have megaplexes in most towns. Like in most smaller towns, you don't have megaplexes. You still have theaters that have like one or two movie screens, Like downtown, we have an art center that has 2 screens. But what would happen is that you would get the movies and they would play in shorter run. That way they could bring more movies to the town. So the movies would come out and they'd stay a month. And then, of course, now sometimes movies will stay in a movie theater. If it's doing well, it'll stay in the theaters for quite a while. I remember the original Poltergeist. I saw in an AMC movie theater in Mall St. Vincent, or St. Vincent Mall. I've never gotten that right. Is it St. Vincent Mall or Mall St. Vincent? Anyway, the theater's not there anymore. But yeah, and it had a few different screens. I know at the time it had at least 4 screens, but they were, But anyway, it played this movie Poltergeist. It played there, and it was there for quite a while, and we didn't go see it because we didn't know what the hell it was. And then it was left the theater, and then within a few weeks later, or maybe a couple of months later, it actually came back to the same theater. And so movies would do that. They would do that. They would go in and out as they were as they gained popularity or whatever. As they if they didn't get pickup, like nobody knew what the hell a poltergeist was until that movie Poltergeist. That word was not in the everyday American lexicon like it is today. So we couldn't even pronounce that. We weren't like uneducated or anything. It's just I was in third grade, and and it's like I think it came out at a time of the year that it didn't do so hot, and so they pulled it. It was there for a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't know, and then it was gone, and then it came back later in the summer, and it was a scary movie, but it was rated PG. And I think maybe that's what it was. People were like, okay, if we're going to go see a horror movie, we want to be scared. And we didn't think a family movie could be scary. But that movie actually kind of had its scary moments, Anyway, The Fan, 1981, featuring Lauren Bacall, James Garner, Michael Biehn, Maureen Stapleton, and several others that you would probably recognize. Please go check it out. Love you. Peace. Good night.